Hello, everyone. I'm Dave Despain. We all knew it was coming, yet no one has ever really prepared for the passing of a legend. Enzo Ferrari died last weekend. The final curtain has fallen on one of the most remarkable careers in the history of motorsports. It was 90 years ago that Enzo Ferrari was born in northern Italy, the town of Modena, where he spent his entire life. At age 21, he made his debut as a race driver, entered a local hill climb, and soon after, he was a member of the Alfa Romeo factory team, who won nearly a third of his 47 races. But his attention was drawn from driving race cars to building them. And in 1951, Froilan Gonzalez of Argentina gave the new Ferrari team its first Grand Prix victory. From that day to this, no other team won so often. In sports car racing, Ferraris won all the world's great road races several times over. Enzo was the only car maker to achieve sustained success with full-bodied as well as open-wheeled cars. Ferrari, the self-made engineering wizard, benefited from an innate understanding of cars and of people. A self-styled troublemaker, he used tension as a motivational tool. He was alternately loved and loathed for his handling of teams and drivers. He could be both subtle and crude, sensitive and intimidating. Juan Manuel Fangio was perhaps the greatest driver in history, but drove just one season for the man known as the Drake or Commendatore, and he nearly suffered a nervous breakdown en route to the fourth of his 5 world championships. Indeed, the darkest hour in Ferrari history has often been attributed to inter-team rivalry. 1961 Italian Grand Prix, American Phil Hill and the German Wolfgang von Trips locked in a battle for the world championship. In the first desperate scramble for position, Von Trips collided with Jimmy Clark's Lotus and vaulted into the crowd. The driver and 13 spectators were killed. Hill's moment of triumph, the first American World Championship, was marred, and just a year later, he left the team. The Prancing Horse logo survived through 5 decades as a symbol of race car and street car excellence. But ironically, more Americans know Ferrari's face for a television tire commercial. Enzo Ferrari will live in history as the man who created the tradition of the Italian sports car. Over 40 years, the Ferrari name became much more than a man and his car. In Italy, it is a symbol of national pride. Among the Ferraristi, the passionate devotees of the brand, Ferrari is a way of life. Here's Chris Economacki of National Speed Sport News.
The reputation for Ferrari quality has grown and grown. There are Ferrari clubs around the world. Trainloads of Italian racing fans visit the Hungarian and Austrian Grand Prix to see the Italian racing red cars compete. Book after book has been written about Ferrari and his cars. And in this country, a magazine, Cavallino, the Prancing Horse, is published. Its only subject, Ferrari cars. It was in Grand Prix racing where Ferrari shone. 434 starts, 93 victories, 106 pole positions, 103 fastest laps, 9 World Driver Championships, a record unmatched by any other builder. And what about the man? For most of his 90 years, he was an enigma. His appetite for technical excellence is legendary. And Mario Andretti, who won his first Grand Prix race in a Ferrari, said when we spoke with him Tuesday about the man, "You always felt psychologically superior when you drove a Ferrari." And so, with the recent death of Henry Ford, and now Enzo Ferrari, only one of the 3 world's great automen remain, Ferry Porsche.
Thank you, Chris. We'll have more on Enzo Ferrari a little later, and more of Motorweek right after this. In death, Enzo Ferrari remains largely a mystery. He was a private man, best known by his family and by the men who raced his cars. Seeking some insight into that man, I visited this week with one of the many great Ferrari drivers. Jody Scheckter, it's been 10 years since you became the last man to deliver to Enzo Ferrari a World Driving Championship. How did he react? What kind of man was he?
The old man he's tough, and he's calculating, and he wants to win races. And he wanted Ferrari always to be the one that was the star. I didn't really mind. I just wanted to win the World Championship. But he was a very tough man, very intelligent. Even at his later years, he was still much cleverer than anybody else around him.
Jody, the reputation is that the Ferrari team was entirely a reflection, a mirror image of the man. Would you buy that?
There wasn't a press release, there wasn't a story that left without him reading through it and approving it. He was very, very conscious of his image, and that it didn't bother me too much, because if I win the championship, he can get all the glory. I didn't really worry about that so much, and I think that was good. We got along well, and that was part of it. But yes, he was a very detailed person in that respect.
Tell me about the first time you met Enzo Ferrari. People say that meeting him was like an audience with the Pope.
My first meeting with him was secret. Obviously, I was driving for Wolf at the time and drove up to Modena. Somebody met me on the motorway. It was quite an experience, and we drove through secretly, went into this garage where the doors opened, and we went in. We sat down. He had bodyguards and interpreters, and went into this old office, which was all made of the sort of 30s wood. It was like white wood. I can remember that, with all the old cups there. He was behind there, and he asked me, how much do you want? It was the first question he asked me. And I think I believe he wanted to see what my motivation was. And I remember replying, I'm too young to talk about money. And I think that's what set our relationship off. Then after that, he always tried to get me. I didn't know the mystique. I really related to a lot of the English teams. And when I joined Ferrari, I think that's when I realized what it was like to be part of Ferrari, really racing for Italy. And it is something very special. He's a great man in history for anybody, not only somebody that had the privilege to be as close as I was to him, but he's done a lot to change the history of the world, really, because you don't go anywhere where somebody knows about Ferrari.